and welcome to our webinar today, The Customer Journey. I'm your host today, Donna Perkins with Conexxus. Next slide. Here's our agenda for today. We have a few housekeeping items. We'll talk a little bit about Conexxus. We'll introduce our presenters and then have the presentation. And then please stay tuned for some question and answers at the end. Just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on Conexxus365.org within the next week. We do have the ability to ask questions in the interface. Just click the little question bar on your toolbar and you can enter your questions. We ask you to get those in early. Don't wait till the very end. We will compile those and hand them off to our speakers as the webinar is happening, and we'll get to your questions right at the end. We do have PCI continuing education credits for some of our live events. So if you have questions on that, please feel free to contact us at 365@conexxus.org. Next slide. And here's the slide that our lawyers like. Conexxus does not endorse any products or services that may be described or mentioned in this presentation. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the speakers and not of Conexxus. Thank you to our 2021 Diamond sponsors. These organizations have been a great help to Conexxus and our continual supporters, and we're very grateful for all they've done for us over the past year. Thank you. Conexxus is an independent, nonprofit, member-driven technology organization. We set standards in many areas across the C-store industry: data exchange, data security, mobile commerce, payments, and more. We provide vision and identify new emerging tech trends. We also advocate for the industry and are at the table at a technology focus where conversations are happening so that your business is protected and we keep things even and the playing field level. We always want you to connect with us and to find us. We can find us several places online. You can find us, of course, at Conexxus365.org. You can find us at Conexxus.org, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. All right, now I'm going to hand it off to Kristen Call, our sponsor at Intel. And Kristen, take it away.
Well, thank you, Donna. I am excited to talk about the customer journey. So today we're going to talk about the customer journey and the increasingly complex competition that, all the C-stores and a lot of different industries are racing to become a seamless shopping experience. I'd like you to join us with Jeff Sharpe and Phil Stead. Jeff Sharpe is the director with 5G IoT Edge AI, say that fast 50 times, Solutions, and Phil Stead, who is the limited partner with Reliant. Jeff Sharpe, throughout his 39-year career, Jeff has focused on defining strategic direction for best-in-breed network and AI training, inferencing, and solutions while building successful partnerships for new product delivery. He's currently focused on next-gen edge solutions for smart places, transportation, and cities, Industry 4.0, and 5G MEC-based services. Phil is responsible for leading the expansion of Reliant's edge computing platform across retail, hospitality, and C-store verticals. This includes the delivery of Reliant platform, the retail industry's leading edge as a service solution, powering a wide array of in-store functional use cases and customer experiences. Phil is a subject matter expert on a wide array of retail technologies, enterprise system integration, emerging technologies, and best practices across retail and hospitality. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to talk about the customer journey.
Thank you, Kristen. And it's funny, I'm sitting here looking at my my profile picture, and man, COVID is really working from home is gaining some cheek wear here. But I'm really excited about being in this session, especially with our friends at Intel and Reliant. What I'm going to talk a lot about is the Supermicro investing opportunities that we're seeing over the past few years. Introduction of Supermicro for the folks that are not aware of it, but really looking at how the retail industry is growing, especially in a AI environment. Next slide. Speaking of AI, so from a Supermicro, along with our partners such as Reliant, we're getting industry-based feedback on how the retail industry is moving towards more of an intelligent network, an intelligent-based service-operated edge to cloud environment. So within Supermicro, our DNA really originated from the cloud, the enterprise data center space, the large frames that you see in data centers. Well, over the past 5 years, we've really invested not just manpower, but also technologies and engineering at the edge. And what we see AI happening is it's an edge to cloud mentality, meaning that it takes kind of a network of devices, a network of environments for AI to accomplish a lot of the needs that our retailers are looking for. As an example, you may have a sensor. It could be in a refrigeration unit. It could be in a dispenser. It could even be a computer camera that is looking and surveilling or allowing self-checkout. Could be that sensor. And that sensor is feeding information into a high-end compute device, which is also kind of storing some of the data. It's running what we call ISVs, or software applications that are doing what's called inferencing at the edge, thinking and managing from a computer AI perspective, an input and what that output is. And then you have edge of network. It could be switching. It could be going through a carrier's wireless network or wireline network, or even a private network, all the way to the cloud. And the big differentiation is two things between edge to cloud. One being is usually your operational teams are managing your stores themselves, the edge. And then your IT team is normally managing the public, private, or the cloud environment that you're looking at data modeling, you're looking at analytics, you're storing the data, you're actually doing the man-machine interface to your network through the cloud. All of that is happening, and those two organizations really have to come together on all of those technologies from edge to cloud. And by the way, all of these different levels of computing and networking have to be seamless. The top portion is really a low latency, 10 milliseconds or less environment. But in your cloud, you don't have those latency issues. You're managing the data, you're learning, you're training from an AI model. So moving forward with Supermicro, next slide, we have the ability to do that edge to cloud mentality with a lot of focus at the edge and our fanless-based product lines. So if you think of stores themselves, it could be a big box retailer, it could be a C-store, it could be a restaurant, or even a fast food chain, in which that environment doesn't really support, very seamless environmental conditions. As you see in a data center, data centers, are normally very sterile. They got great humidity, they've got great air conditioning. So everything is pumping along, but at the edge, you may not have that. This could be sitting in a back storage room next to a shelf of toilet paper, as an example, next to the bathroom. It could be in a kitchen environment, which could have lots of steam and moisture and heat. It could be in a refrigeration unit, which is very cool. So, when you think of Supermicro, you think of, large data center deployments, you think of high-end AI learning machines, but we also do these fanless boxes. And this is a growing industry for Supermicro, especially in the retail and big box chains. The key part about fanless products is that you're not having particulates come into the system. And you also have very small systems that could be embedded in digital signage. You can have it embedded underneath the cash register, as an example, for point of sales. So it's a very compact but high-end environment as well. Next slide, Kristen. So speaking of artificial intelligence, we're looking at AI really as a common environment that we would like to use as a common platform for different types of AI. So when people think of AI, they may think of a robot, they may think of an autonomous car, but really AI is considered, we've kind of categorized it in 7 areas. It could be autonomous systems, retail stores, it could be self-checkout, it could be self-POS, it could be recognition of yourself. It's also analytics. There's patterns and anomalies that are happening within your store and the environment around your store that you want to analyze to improve your business, to improve your ROI. Where are people walking within my store? Where are they stopping? Where are they actually grabbing stuff that I can maybe manipulate the way that I'm arranging my signage or I'm arranging my products? The other key part is recognition and personalization. These are areas in which if I walk into a store with my phone, everyone carries their phone, there could be a personalization item that the NFC is providing to the store itself that knows that I'm Jeff Sharpe. So my quality of experience within the store could be enhanced using AI-based technologies. And that's where your personalization comes into play. Wouldn't it be great if I pull up to a gas station, it recognizes me, it already knows what type of gas I want to use. And while I'm pumping it, it could be also offering me additional services, which not just improves my quality of experience, but also generates additional revenue and items for that store. So with all that said, all those are different types of applications that are running AI on top of a middleware-based system that Phil will go in a little bit more detail. But we have a common workflow. You don't want to have a million types of interfaces to do analytics and goal-driven output. You want a fairly common workflow for ease, for cost savings, in which that input could be different for each application, and that output is different, but my workflow is the same to save time, energy, and money. Next slide. So within Supermicro's perspective and looking at the market, we've been doing this for a while, and what we're recognizing from our customers is that not every deployment is exactly the same. Every deployment that we're seeing has different requirements, has different needs. And based on those needs, being a hardware supplier and a solution supplier in the retail space, we recognize that a small mom and pop, let's say a shoe store or a cobbler store, may not need a tremendous amount of horsepower. So their needs are very small, right? But they want to get into more higher end compute to, again, to differentiate themselves from their competition and improve the quality of service for their customer. So we've taken a mentality of small, medium, large, and even extra large that can be put at the edge to manage not just the workloads themselves, but if you remember my first discussion around the network of AI, the different components of AI, I may need a bigger pipe to send information up into the cloud, whether it's high-end video data, whether it's high-end picture data or analytics that are all going real time. These systems are placed at the edge based on those workloads and throughput. We have small minimal port. I may not need 100 gig of IO. I only need maybe a gig, just something that I can plug into my router and upload, maybe in the middle of the night data. And by the way, that system needs to be small. It needs to be under my counter. All the way up into a larger system that I'm running multiple workloads, needing higher throughput capabilities, and also different options of those throughput capabilities as well. So we look at it from not just a piece of hardware, but also the components within the hardware, from high-end Xeon SP-based processors with high core counts, including different interfaces for VPUs, GPUs, add-ons for hardware acceleration and more AI. That's what we call our 220 Hyper-E, to a large system, which this E403 is kind of our workhorse. We're seeing more and more deployments, not just in the retail, but in industrial, smart cities, and others. because our E403 is built to go in different types of cabinets. It could go outside on a pole in an IP65 oriented system. It could go underneath a shelf, or it could go in the back room as well. So that large system seems to fit a really, really good niche on a single socket Xeon SP. We can also do a core in that, different VPU, GPU based options, and plug and play IO. Medium systems are usually single socket Intel based that are either Core or Xeon D based architectures based on the environment that it's going to go in. And then the small is the smaller systems, which are Atom based or Core based. Next slide. And in the retail space, and defining retail for us, it's many things. It's not just a shopping center or a big box store, but it could be a C-store, a convenience store, gas station. It could be a fast food restaurant. It could be a larger chain of restaurants. It could be a huge big box retailer, brick and mortar, that home improvement stores and whatnot, which are all moving towards more of an intelligent based architecture. And from our standpoint, again, as I was talking about that small, medium, large environment, we have the ability to do workloads in a smaller footprint than most of our competition, mainly because of the Intel-based architectures and our system-based architectures that can support a multitude of AI functions. Again, that common workflow, again, that multiple applications running simultaneously at the edge in environmental conditions that may not warrant a really high-end server. So for us, things like loss prevention, analytics, store traffic, looking at heat maps of where people are walking around, digital signages are becoming more and more of a reality, especially touchless based architectures, interactive kiosks, shelf labeling systems, robotics within the store, real-time management. And the other key thing to this, and I think Phil will go into more detail, is more personalization. When I walk into the store, with COVID, hopefully we're getting out of this COVID realm, but people really are not into interacting much anymore, but they want that quality of experience. So how can I recognize that, hey, this is Jeff Sharpe or Phil, and he's a very important customer. He has a loyalty program. How do I do that within my store and make that seamless to the customer, but the customer feels welcome, they feel as personalized, they know my shopping habits, so they're going to give me coupons and other things within the store. So again, all this uses an AI, higher end platforms, and it's also because of the throughput requirements, a lot of the data is being sent up to the network for analyzation, for training, for learning, and just really to improve that experience. Plus, it gives better ROI to that retailer. Next slide, Chris. And by the way, as I'm talking a little bit about environmental conditions within the retail space, Supermicro is taking the approach of working with really great partners such as Reliant. And from a hardware perspective, we recognize that in certain stores and environments, you need to be running 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we're working with our great ecosystem partners on building systems that can attach to a wall, maybe has a battery backup. In this example, the green square here is actually a battery backup. And we can put 3 of those E403s and hang it on a wall that's lockable. It also has LEDs in the background, green meaning it's running, yellow meaning there's a fault, or red that it's down, so you can visually see if that system is running. So again, we have these abilities to do HA components in a wall mount environment, or next slide. The other key area that we're seeing is digital signage. Digital signage is an important interface to consumers, not just at a drive-through window, but also co-located in shopping centers and EV charging stations, bus stops, that I can advertise, I can interact with the consumer. In this case, with this display system, it's basically a mini data center. that incorporates a Supermicro server along with AI functions, cameras, environmental conditions, even a comms box that I can interface to the network wirelessly, either through a Wi-Fi 6.0 network or a 5G based network. But we're seeing more and more deployments of digital signage with Supermicro and our partners as well. Next slide. In the retail space, if you walk into a restaurant, a fast food convenience store, or a big box chain, we're deploying lots of new really killer services. And by the way, the ISV market out there is expanding tremendously. The software applications that are running inferencing and modeling techniques is just growing every day. And for us, just in this instance, we're looking at central kitchen management that we're deploying, ensuring that the quality of food is being prepared properly, that there's health safety that's being done. If a piece of food falls on the floor, we can recognize that using AI. More and more self-checkout or touchless-based systems, more voice recognition systems, and during my order taking, that's putting more emphasis on the quality of the food prep and the delivery of the food prep, not the interaction at that delivery or the self-checkout attributes. Traffic analysis is so important to understand where my traffic flow is within the store, and utilizing more and more robotics, more and more intelligent cart systems that again enhances my shopping experience, that I can go in and come out and feel that quality of experience was worthwhile in that store. Next slide. And the other key area is, again, with our great partner Reliant, who is not just integrating a lot of the services, but has that middleware portion or that software portion that's heavily focused on the retail industry, that is, again, improving the quality of experience through kiosks, through roboticware within the kitchen, the delivery of that, helping of the customers through their interaction. And I don't want to steal any thunder from Phil, but we have a solution brief that we worked on together with Reliant up on the supermicro.com site that you can pull down and see some of these additional examples of what Supermicro and Reliant is doing together. So with that said, thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to Phil.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate the intro. And thanks to Intel and Conexxus for having me today. Great to be here. Thank you. Go ahead, Kristen. Great. So we're Reliant. We are the leading edge platform for retail, hospitality, and C-store brands today. We're deployed in tens of thousands of locations. Our customers leverage our software-based solution across a very wide set of use cases, where we deliver full systems, individual applications that they may select in both type 1 virtual machines or containers. We perform a tremendous amount of endpoint IoT management, and we deliver digital content. And that's just a few of the things we do. What's important here is that all of the customers here, and we've got many, many more customers, but this presentation today is very focused on C-store. But all of these customers that you're seeing here all have very different, unique operational, customer experience, guest experience, and third-party vendor applications that they're delivering. They're using the same exact Reliant platform software solution in every one of these use cases. So we're very flexible in how we're deployed into those environments today. Next slide, Kristen. Thank you. Great. So there's three major components to our platform. First of all, there's Reliant Platform Manager. So Reliant Platform Manager, this is the cloud-delivered UI where C-store merchants and large corporate parent companies can go in a multi-tenant environment and see every single one of their C-store locations. So this includes all aspects of the internal networking. This includes the type of physical hardware that they may be running. They may be running in a single box, or they may be running in a dual highly available configuration. So all of the configurations are stored and managed centrally in the cloud. And what's great about this is that can be in any cloud of their choice. So this can run in AWS, it can run in Azure, it can run in GCP, it can run in their DC or an authorized third party. So everything, including the network services, the hypervisor, the virtual machines, all of the individual data parameters, all of the integrated monitoring, dynamic log collection, all of this stuff lives in this platform. And what's best about this is for the largest of the organizations and operators that we deal with, this is all API available. So for the large operators that have built web services and have large data sets around operating these very complex applications at scale, they can now build API integration into our system to control and orchestrate actions down inside the four walls of the C-store or out at the pump. And that's a very powerful piece. Next slide, next tab. And then next is the management plane. So the management plane consists of a set of servers that deliver systems deployment, configuration management, and orchestration functions. And again, that can run in any location that the C-store merchant wants to run them in. Go ahead, Kristen. And then Reliant Edge Platform. So this is the really interesting stuff here. So as C-store merchants, which have traditionally had just a real challenge in deploying technology, Reliant Edge Platform is a software-based solution that can run inside the C-store and extend services out to the forecourt and host a variety of applications. So at the end of the day, we are running on any physical hardware. We lead with Supermicro. We lead with an Intel-based platform because we truly believe that that's a really winning combination. As it relates to C-stores, we see the operating conditions in C-store are some of the harshest in retail, and I know a lot of the people that are on this call and on this webinar today are going to agree with that. That the conditions between the increased amount of food service and ambient grease and the general operating requirements inside the location with particulates and et cetera that Jeff mentioned, it's very important that the hardware selected to run in the solution and manage all of these complex systems is durable and retail ruggedized. And that's a concept that we really lead with when selecting the right platform. And we've got C-store merchants today running, as Jeff mentioned, really small Atom-based single box solutions, delivering a set of maybe small containers, networking, digital content, all the way up to fanless dual systems running in a high availability configuration with a large amount of virtualization, running site controller and running a variety of in-store legacy client server architecture. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we're a software company. We're not hardware. We run on any x86, as I mentioned, and we're providing a complete edge solution. So we're not writing business-facing applications. Our merchants, our customers go out to the market, select the applications that work best inside their store and out at the pump, and get the opportunity to run those in the most optimal solution. The system is delivered as edge as a service, and this can be delivered from large parent companies down to individual franchisees and controlled at a very granular level. Next slide. So there's 5 core components of our system that come with Reliant Platform. So the first one is application hosting and application delivery. And that really speaks to both type 1 virtualization. So for traditional, and C-store's got a lot of this, there's a lot of traditional client server type architectures. So we're very well positioned to manage that. And there's no other platform on the market today that can handle both in the same platform natively, running type 1 virtualization and containerization between Docker, LXC, LXD type container delivery. So this allows our customers to go ahead and select those applications and have real redundancy across multiple physical pieces of hardware where they normally may not. And they get to deliver those at scale down to the C-store. Next slide. So configuration management, we at Reliant believe this is actually one of the hardest problems to solve for in C-store. C-stores have such a tremendous footprint in technology, and the personalization, the individual configurations around all of the aspects of a fully functional convenience store environment is very hard to manage. And what we do see in the largest of operators is some level of configuration drift, because most of those systems have been deployed in a way where there's a single piece of hardware that typically is not managed. There's an underlying application with core application configuration data elements, which also are not managed. And when you start multiplying that stuff together, you end up with a really complex challenge. And there's no centralized platform delivering or mandating or enforcing all of those aspects of working at the right in the right way. And that's really what we're solving here. So we spent a lot of our own R&D building out this powerful configuration management framework that allows us to really deliver those applications in exactly the format, the footprint, and the configuration needed for that C-store merchant. And this extends to a wide variety of applications. We can abstract configurations out of those applications and enforce them in code. So when you're operating, several hundred or several thousand locations, you need to have the full assurance that the systems that you're putting out in the field are actually operating and are configured correctly. Those parameters could be things like store numbers that are reused in multiple vendor applications across a wide set of use cases, merchant IDs, terminal IDs, payment device IPs. Any aspect of data that's running inside of the location can be abstracted and enforced in code. And that's a very powerful function. Next slide. So orchestration, this is also extremely important. The ability to identify inside of a C-store a specific system or a specific IoT endpoint or physical piece of hardware or application, and be able to make a dynamic update to that system. So powerful orchestration is a critical component nowadays. C-store operators, more than any other vertical, more than retail, and I think also maybe more than QSR, they have an opportunity because there's such a wide and vast third-party vendor community delivering new technologies. And a lot of these vendors, they simply just don't integrate, and they don't work interoperably. So the ability to actually deploy new features and functions for IT leadership inside of our C-store customers is really important. They need a way to kick the tires. They need a way to push things out in a very granular way to launch and learn. Try a new function. Let's test out this new loyalty app. Let's test out this new feature within our existing point of sale, within our existing back of house, within our existing loyalty program. And we need the ability to granularly control that and then roll that out in a staggered pace or across the entire population. And orchestration allows them to select those services through applications or containers and deliver them at scale today through the API also. Next slide. And then we've got integrated monitoring. Our monitoring stack that natively comes with our Reliant platform software solution can monitor everything that we're running on that Supermicro or potentially alternate hardware appliance running inside of the C-store. But also this can be extended to anything inside or out of the store. So standard checks would be things like CPU, disk, and RAM, but we can also do very granular service checks around applications or specific things for that merchant, that operator that they have running in the environment. If they've got a bespoke or custom application or custom service that they need to check, because that's a critical component of fuel operations or a critical component of signage or dynamic menu delivery, or third-party, delivery services in convenience store, which is a kind of a segment that's really opening up. We can monitor those web services. We can monitor those local functions to ensure that all the critical services that need to be available are running in the best way. Next slide. And then lastly, data collection. So data collection is so important. There's such a tremendous amount of machine data generated inside of a C-store between fuel controllers, tank management, what's happening outside of the pump, point of sale, food service, signage, fuel signs. I mean, there's so much technology inside the location. All of these systems are generating local system logs, whether they're flat files, whether they're syslog generated or some third-party proprietary formats. Reliant platform provides the opportunity to aggregate all of these different system-generated data fields, and instead of sending them out over the wide area network and opening up firewall rules inside of your individual C-stores, you can now point them to the Reliant platform running inside of the C-store. We can become the aggregation point. So you've got one source of truth for all of those endpoint devices, no matter what the vendor, no matter what the application, and we can redirect that back to your third-party SIM, back to a third party, so that you can make the best use of that operational data. Next slide, thank you. So here's a great case study. This is a relatively recent customer of Reliance Racetrack, fantastic C-store merchant based down in Atlanta, Georgia, about 750 locations. So for Racetrack, they have a legacy client server architecture, and they've got a high velocity customer set today, where they're delivering traditional kind of client server combination of services for inside and outside of the pump. So the initial use case with Reliant here is really, let's consolidate down physical hardware. Let's take unmanaged physical individual servers, which are serving one single purpose. And let's get that down onto a highly available set of physical hardware. And that's what we're doing. So things like store EPC, credit card processing, the site controller functions, in-store fulfillment capabilities around merchandising and other back of house functions. So these are all fantastic opportunities. And as we also start collapsing down other physical hardware and network services and other recovery functions, that becomes really powerful. And that's what we're doing today with Racetrack is really being able to kind of bring them forward and give them a platform that allows them to really go out, look at their applications, and what do they want to deliver? What are the next level of services and endpoints that Racetrack wants to deliver? Now they've got a platform that they can take that third-party vendor application, no matter what it is, and they can deliver that through our platform effectively. Next slide. And this is another fantastic story for Reliant. We are currently deploying Taco Bell at scale. So we're going to be deploying approximately 7,500 locations, entirely almost franchisee environment. So we're delivering into that environment, and it's a very tough operating environment, as everyone's aware in QSR. So the same software platform that we're delivering into Racetrack, into Hudson, into Thornton's, and all of our customers today, same exact platform. Taco Bell really is cutting new ground. They're really breaking new ground in the QSR space. They've spent a tremendous amount of their internal development around opening up digital channels and opening up the concept of how do they increase the capacity inside their existing restaurants for multi-drive-through concepts. So the picture you see at the top left here is the new Defy concept, which was announced a few weeks ago. So that's a multi-lane drive-through environment where the actual kitchen operations occurs above the actual drive-through lanes, and customers will check into that location and then be directed to one of multiple bays to pick up their food. So it's a complex environment, but the foundation technology that's handling order management, that's handling back of house operations, kitchen display, point of sale, kiosk, all of those aspects is the exact same stack that's running in every single other Taco Bell. So we are the core foundation delivering that cloud to restaurant stack. And that's exactly like we would drop into a convenience store location. So it's a powerful combination. One of the requirements for Taco Bell was that we were hardware agnostic and cloud agnostic, which we are. And they were able to move forward and select the right hardware for them. And Jeff mentioned before, it's critical in these high velocity environments and in quick serve and in C-store with the ambient grease and the operating conditions that the hardware is ruggedized to the right level. And that's exactly where Taco Bell has landed. They've gone fanless, and they've got a 2-node cluster that's operating at scale. So this allows them full API capability to deliver the right services into the right location. And Taco Bell has a wide variety of formats, whether you're a mall location with no drive-through and minimal kiosk to a multi-drive-through, or a fully digital with 1 drive-through lane, 2 drive-through lanes, 3 drive-through lanes. That stack and the services that run inside that restaurant are all orchestrated and delivered through Reliant platform and orchestrated through our APIs. And there's many new expanded use cases in scope for those guys. Next slide. So what's driving edge computing? So edge computing, it's a bit of a buzzword. There's I'll say for the last 18 months, we hear edge computing. It's taking over architectural design in C-store and retail. So the traditional definition of edge computing really is about eliminating latency. It's a distributed paradigm to bring computation and data storage closer to the sources and user of the data. So in practical terms, what does that mean? It really means in retail and in C-store, which are operations where you have to have the ability to service your customer. You have to have the ability to have the systems, the critical selling systems, the critical systems that are customer facing, fuel operations, inside sales operations. Those systems have to be durable, and they have to be built in a way that they're persistent and can withstand the impact of wide area network outages and also operate at the right level. So really, we see this as the edge for C-store is really the perimeter of the 4 walls, what's happening out at the forecourt, and making sure that all of those systems are running in the most optimal way and are fully capable of operating in an offline situation with high availability. And that's where your customers are, and they're interacting with that technology. Next slide. So this is a good visualization of kind of what we see. And when we talk to new customers in the C-store space, there's traditionally a number of unmanaged client server type applications, and it's a wide variety. And as C-store merchants look to the future and they look to, to the EV use cases, the electronic vehicle use cases and charging stations, and you start adding food service, and I'm not talking about just adding quick serve, but what's happening and what we're seeing in our customer base is quick serve locations are becoming destinations. And they're becoming destinations because out of necessity, because the capability to deliver that service and deliver a variety of services that customers really want. Customers really want to be able to go somewhere and do as many things and get the economies of scale of getting fresh food or getting a sit-down meal, or being able to, get their car charged while they're doing 3 other things. And the smartest brands out there are finding the right balance of combining these different concepts, and that requires different technologies from different vendors. But the systems that these retailer and C-store merchants have today aren't really capable. They're standalone. There's lots of standalone management platforms individually in there. There's rigid and fixed payment channels that QSR may not speak to fuel, may not speak to inside sales. So unlocking all of this, what does that really mean? How do you unlock all of these different options and explore that vendor space? Next slide, Kristen. And it really turns into, well, let's move the enterprise level services up to the cloud. And that's really what's happened. The ability for C-store merchants to really select the best in class around, merchandising and around all of the things that allow them to do the store fulfillment side. But that has to translate to the selling systems. It has to translate to ease and convenience for the customer. What is the intake? What is the customer channel for delivering that solution? Is it customer facing kiosks? Is it scan and go applications on their phone? All of these things require a heavy amount of technology to run inside the location. So where Reliant plugs into this, we see us as something's going to run inside that C-store. And we're best positioned to deliver a combination of bringing the legacy systems, the mandatory systems you need to transact business, while also giving you the ability to deliver the content and deliver the services to connect into those mobile first experiences your customers want to do. They want to do scan and go. You want location-based services. You want to be able to deliver a journey to that customer and deliver it locally. Why send videos, content, and other different media means over the wide area network when you can actually deliver it locally and serve that up from inside the store with very low latency? It's a better experience, and you've got the capability to do it. And as you look towards machine vision and AI, those become tremendous opportunities. And there's opportunities on both sides of the coin. There's opportunities around workforce and labor management, quality control, but also around really gaining tremendous visibility and insight as to what the customers are doing. And then with Reliant, obviously, we have customers in single node, 2 node, where they're running 2 servers. We have customers now that are adding a 3rd node, and they're adding that 3rd node with maybe a different Supermicro configuration, because we're going to add a GPU. We're going to add an ML OpenVINO based AI engine on top of that. And we're going to start looking at deploying camera technology to really leverage and understand what's happening inside the 4 walls and out of the pump. And that's going to change both the traffic patterns, it's going to change the merchandising, the product selection, and exactly what's going to be delivered inside that location. Next slide. So this is a good visualization of what we see when we implement our solution to a merchant. So every single C-store merchant today has selected a cloud. They may have their own data center, but they're running some level of services in AWS, GCP, or Azure. They've selected their IoT vendors. They've selected their middleware apps and reporting. So as they deploy technology, they're punching holes through firewalls. This is all cloud delivered, right? So if they go on the premise that we're going to deliver everything through a cloud-only solution, there's severe limitations with that. Next slide, Kristen. So when they lose the connectivity and we move forward, next slide, they have the option of delivering a single piece of Supermicro hardware. Next slide, Kristen. There we go. Or a dual. So they can run a single box. They can operate a dual system, give them high availability inside the store. Go ahead, Kristen. And then they go ahead and one more slide. And then they can connect that up to or Reliant managed management plane. So they can move that management plane into any of the clouds that they want, or we can host it for them. Then they can connect all of their services into a reliable, highly scalable platform. Next slide. And then connect the all of those devices and endpoints inside the restaurant, inside the QSR location. So really, Edge is filling the gap. At the end of the day, we're providing reduced latency, interoperability of applications, reliability. We're providing a reduction in total expense because you're eliminating multiple individual systems, multiple vendor implementations, and combining that into a single or dual approach, and with better compliance and agility. Next slide. And then lastly, we see Edge really as being the nucleus and inside the four walls of the store and at the pump. Just go through these, Chris, and you can hit all the buttons on this one. So really, it's endpoint IoT, anything, any physical piece of hardware that's in the C-store location, we're connecting to applications, self-service, kiosk, training, payment acceptance, fuel operations, networking. We're able to consolidate down SD-WAN and virtualized network frameworks onto a Supermicro Intel-based platform. We're connecting data. We're aggregating data logs. We're aggregating system information and pushing that back up to the SIM. And then mostly we're able to provide a landing place for your consumers, your guests. When they arrive at the convenience store and they check into that guest Wi-Fi, you've now got the ability to serve up local content. And that is an extremely powerful opportunity to combine scan and go applications, predictable PLU pricing, scan and go, and tell the story that you want to tell inside that C-store location, and connect those services from all of your third-party vendors. And that's it.
Wow, thanks, Phil and Jeff. There is a lot of complexity around the technology, a lot of things to happen. And I know we're going to jump into the Q&A and we're going to talk about how to understand all that technology, how to implement it, because our customer journeys are what set each convenience store and their roadmap, who they want to be for their customer, and sets them apart. So I'm excited to jump right into Q&A.
All right, well, we're in the Q&A session, so welcome everyone. Again, lots to unpack, and maybe I don't have any questions, so we probably wazzled and dazzled our audience with some great content. And let's kind of decompact some of that or unpack some of that. As we talk about the customer journey, Phil, you talked a lot about the technology, the components that go inside. What are you seeing in the field of if a customer wanted to just start their own journey to enhance the customer journey, where are you seeing are they starting? Are they starting with the business process, moving into the technology? Can you kind of give us a little insights of what you're seeing?
Yeah, Kristen, that is a great question. I mean, it's different for different companies. What I'll say is, in some businesses, in some verticals, we see this being, vendor strategy and vendor selection, I think, is incredibly difficult. And I think C-store merchants, and I mentioned it during the webinar, it's incredibly hard. There's a real lock on some of the third-party off-the-shelf vendors that operate in the space, and not all vendors are equal. And I think for the independent franchisee, there's different mandates around those technology stacks. So if I'm operating a fleet of C-store locations, I may be looking at my current application stack and looking at how can I optimize that versus, do I have the right infrastructure? And those are two very different strategies, right? Understanding, do my applications actually give me the capabilities to manage inventory, manage fuel operations, decrement inventory, take payment, all the basics. But beyond that, do I have the infrastructure, and do I have the capability to deliver these services reliably? And no other vertical like C-store, uptime is so critical. I mean, the cost impact to not having these services available is so significant. So often it's an infrastructure-led discussion out of the gate. Without the right network, without the right infrastructure, C-store merchants really are very limited on what they can do. So I would say for the most part in the C-store space, it turns into an infrastructure discussion. I think infrastructure opens the door an opportunity to different vendor selections. And that's what we're seeing in our client base. They may be working with vendor X today exclusively. In an edge architecture, they now get to select the applications in a multi-vendor approach that really may work much better for them with their specific use cases.
Yeah, so we're often trying to take the business process and work back to technology, and I know we kind of started with the technology and move it forward, and it seems a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But with this customer journey and where things were going, we can see that technology has to be part of the conversation, and hopefully we're getting more comfortable with that. I've got a question here from Gray. Says how might a retailer with a traditional point-to-point POS to enterprise stack consider a migration, edge, and software-defined stores? Do I wait to justify it with IoT? Can old and new complement each other? What's that? It's not a rip and replace, right?
No, I mean, so that's a great point. I mean, we see this in the retail space. We're seeing it in the C-store space also. There's, taking POS physical hardware and doing a rip and replace is a tremendously capital intensive exercise. And no business these days wants to replace, fixed position point of sale with yet another implementation. So there's a couple of different ways that can play out. The selling systems are the core lifeblood of the operation, right? In terms of taking transactions, processing orders, receiving orders, et cetera. So what we're seeing is a number of retailers and C-store merchants that are trying to extend the lifespan of that hardware. And they're able to do that with an edge architecture. I can take the workload, meaning the operating system, the application, the database in these traditionally legacy client server applications. I can move that workload over to the edge, keep the exact same POS physical hardware in place, and redirect all those peripheral devices. So what does that gain the C-store merchant? It gains them the ability to extend the lifespan out on that hardware, because not many people know this, but in a Windows 11 world, there's going to be a very hard limit on which CPUs, which chipsets are actually going to support Windows 11 going forward. And there's a large amount of POS hardware that's going to immediately go EOL because it will not support the new requirements from Microsoft. So everybody just went through an incredibly painful exercise in the point of sale and back of house world to deploy, Windows 10 IoT. In an edge environment, that becomes much easier. Under Reliant platform, I can now stand up that new environment, turn down that virtual machine or container, and stand back up the new point of sale environment, all by doing it remotely, all leaving the existing hardware in place. So the capital savings are huge, right?
Yep. So Jeff, I got a couple questions for you. I mean, based on some of the things that Phil said, the hardware obviously is super important, understanding what that hardware configuration should look like. But even more complex, if a retailer wants to do computer vision on top of all of this, like how do they wrap their heads around understanding what kind of hardware they're going to need? I know there's two questions in there, but
yeah, those are actually good questions, because if you look at the AI and the retail investments that the retail industry is doing, cameras is a big part of it for security, surveillance, for personalization, and from a Supermicro standpoint, and with our great partner with Reliant, we look at it as trying to put as many workloads on one system as we possibly can. And what that enables the customer to do, let's say it's a QSR or maybe even a small convenience store, their footprint of hardware could be relatively small, right? You don't have to get a piece of hardware for this use case, another use case, another use case, and another use case. We're trying to combine all that into one centralized box environment. And with that said, using Intel-based SKUs, we can go from small all the way to extra large with the amount of cores. And that's another great value that Reliant does, is enabling those virtual machines or containers to operate within that workload space. And by selecting the hardware, great question around cameras, is there's a lot of different options that are out there. If you think of a store today, let's say a C-store as an example, you may have a very old CCTV camera up in the corner, and it's feeding information to a PC that's recording it, or a DVR that's recording what's going on within the store. And it's post activity. Let's say there's a robbery or shoplifting, I can go back and look at that. Where AI kind of adds a little more real-time, low latency attributes to it, where I can do self-checkout, I can do personalization, I can do security and surveillance, all autonomously within my system. But do I need that old CCT camera? Do I want something a little more high res? Do I want something that is an IP characteristic camera, that I'm using an IP connection which needs compression? Or PoE as an example, to power over Ethernet? Or do I use an old, a nice USB based camera? So we offer those kind of consulting services based on the use case, whether it's a high res, and a low throughput, low frame speeds, or high res and high frame speeds. We can coordinate with the end user to help with those decisions.
Yeah, actually, Kristen, what we're seeing in the retail space is we're certainly seeing that the camera technology is evolving so quickly. Camera technology, machine vision, there's so many practical applications, from workforce management, quality control. The basic LP slip and fall use cases are self-evident, but the new use cases around operational efficiencies are really amazing. But what a lot of large retail and large operators are seeing is that technology is changing rapidly. So if you do a massive rollout, you deploy 5, 10, 20 cameras per site, with the latest technology where you're putting new circuitry into those cameras, that's a really expensive project. And that camera technology may be obsolete in 12 to 18 months because it's directly tied to the circuitry, the componentry, and the vendor. So you're also going with a vendor-specific rollout, right? A vendor-specific delivery. We have a lot of large customers that are going in the opposite direction. They're saying, look, we want to move that ML AI capability around workforce management and run that at the edge. So looking at things like OpenVINO, looking at platforms that allow open platforms that allow integration from third parties that are really specific around looking at that camera footage. And I can now combine that with any camera manufacturer and lower end cost hardware. That becomes much more feasible. And the unit economics about deploying 10, 20 cameras is much more palatable than going at the top end of the market, right? So you can take in, and this is where the economies of scale for Edge really come in. Our customers, our most successful customers, are the ones that have really strong financial management around their budgeting, because they say with an Edge implementation, I can solve a machine vision project, a POS virtualization project, a retrofit at my pumps, all under the same banner, right? And get much more bang for the buck.
So
And let me add,
I'm sorry. With that, so I'm sorry, Gabe. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, and to add on what Phil said, another key element to computer hardware and the cameras that are associated to it, one of the key things is there's so many ISVs or software providers that are out there that are running their applications that are using computer vision as that inferencing and training model. My suggestion is to look at a common ISV partner that can do multiple asset tracking and multiple asset through that one camera, versus having a security company doing one use case and autonomous checkout doing another. If you have one that can do a lot of those in the same application, you may only need one camera to do all that versus multiple cameras doing multiple use cases. So again, as Phil was saying, economy of scale, if you don't have a huge budget and you want to do multiple items, you may only want maybe 2 cameras minimal. But if you're another environment where you want one camera to do one use case, then it's going to get more expensive, right? Because now you're doing more and more different kind of cameras and hardware technologies.
Yeah. Why ship all that footage back through the cloud, right? I mean, there's a finite amount of physics. You're limited by physics and connectivity, right? Why ship all this footage back when you can run OpenVINO, run this under an Intel-based platform, generate the metadata, the exception-based data you need locally, there's so many more efficiencies to be doing this through an edge platform.
Well, I'm sure we could spend another hour on this topic, but we're actually out of time.
Okay.
Welcome. So thank you so much, you guys. This was a great conversation. I hope that someday we're going to be face to face and be able to pick this right back up. And our audience who have joined us or who are listening, feel free to reach out. LinkedIn, you can contact Conexxus, our good friend David here. If any further questions, we're here to answer them. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Great topic. Thank you.